in the leaderboard as well. So
Better? Can you hear me now? How about now? Can you hear me now? I'm also going to try this. Join with video. I also have to turn my video off on this because we're going to do the meeting on Zoom. So, okay, cool. You can hear me? Now we just got to make sure that I can hear Pinckney. Hello, can you hear me, Pinckney?
I hear you.
Excellent. I'm just trying to
see your 8-bit version of yourself, though.
Oh yeah, that's because I'm doing OBS. So I'm gonna swap over so that my normal version works. But I gotta fix the audio output capture so that I can capture y'all's audio. Can you say something real quick for me?
1, 2, 3.
Excellent.
Talking to Dylan Davis.
All right, Discord chat. Did you hear Pinckney talking? That's very crucial. Because if you can hear Pinckney talking,
there's just no reason for any of this.
No, absolutely not. This is your day.
I feel like a bride.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to, I believe, turn off my video capture, and I'm going to turn it on.
And you sent the link to Jay?
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I thought you texted it to him.
Oh, no, I don't have his I don't have his phone number, I don't believe.
Crap. Copy.
Let me see. If I have his phone number, I'll send it. No. The only J I've got is Jay Livingston, and he will not suffice.
Yeah, Jay. I mean, Jay's a great guy, but he's not a professor, and he's not on my committee. Although I would have liked to have him on my committee.
He would have been fun. He's very entertaining.
He is very entertaining.
He's very entertaining. People really like Jay.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Okay. So now let's just switch the source. Maybe that'll work.
You can still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. Everybody, let's check the Discord chat real quick. Everybody can hear everybody? Sound's working. Okay. And now start video. Haha, there we go. Excellent. I was really worried about that because OBS was really taking it away from me. It was like
OBS is very, like, I get into OBS every now and again, and I'm like, this does everything, and then I'm like, but it does too much.
Yeah, right. It takes away my control.
You sent the invite to Jay?
I did send the invite to Jay via text. Okay. Probably should have sent it via email, but he's on a Mac, so all of his devices are interconnected.
Yeah. I mean, wildly overpriced and underpowered.
I agree.
Definitely interconnected.
I agree. I got some new headphones for today.
Oh, wow.
So I can keep my hair fresh.
Very fancy. Not a concern that I had. I guess I should wear headphones, but I'm not going to.
That's okay. You don't have to. All good. Will you email it to me? Yes, Jay, I will be happy to do that. Outlook.
Yeah. So are we streaming now? Even now?
Oh yeah, right now. This is the.
Well, I'll be very careful what I say then.
This is the waiting room, the thesis defense waiting room. But I'm having trouble because Matthew didn't text me back, and because I need the Twitch token.
He texted it to me.
Oh yeah, my system sound can come up totally.
8222. I can't say it out loud.
Well, you probably can. I don't think anybody.
I'm sorry.
I don't think anybody can take advantage of it.
I could show it to you.
That's okay. I got it. Let's remember this computer for 30 days. Okay, we're logged in.
I told him you texted.
Yeah. Pinckney did. I'm sorry. It got lost. I'm very nervous. Okay, there's a lot going on. Okay, so let's do.
Oh, it's so cute.
Yeah. Well, I'm never nervous, like I've like that's just not how I am naturally. Sounds working. You'd never betray me. So How do I change the... Oh, thank you, Matthew. You already changed the name. Whew. Woo. Good.
Man, we got your back. This is all going to go well, despite your being in a bizarre tizzy. I've been looking forward to this for like
10 minutes. Okay, I think I'm about logged in to my email. Of course, like, this is the natural mode for Pinckney and I, is to get to the thing that we're going to do, and then suddenly we have to log into all of our accounts, and we don't...
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like, okay, wait a second. Yeah. All right, now I need the two-factor stuff from the email.
What's the password for Steam?
For that. Exactly.
No, not that Steam account, the wrong one. I need the Cola.
Yeah, we all have like 7 Steam accounts and 4 Twitch accounts. I mean, it is insane.
It is insane. Yeah. It is totally crazy.
Well, nothing's set up for what we're doing. Like, we're clearly the first people ever doing this stuff.
Yeah, no.
Nothing accommodates what we're doing.
No, nothing does. And so everything we have to do, we have to figure it out on our own, which is fine by me. I kind of like that part.
I actually prefer, like, I would rather be, out here on the frontier.
Right. Yep, absolutely.
Make stuff up as we go along. That's obviously my favorite mode.
Okay, so Stream Chat, particularly Matthew, is the audio for Pinckney now good? Because I've turned him up quite a bit.
Yeah, can you hear me? I can yell into my microphone. I can turn up the gain.
Shouldn't have to. I should be able to. I think I should be able to control it from here.
I have the power.
Okay, sound's all working. Still quiet. Damn.
Still quiet.
Okay, let's just crank you all the way up, and let's turn that all the way up, and then
now my gain's all the way up.
Let's go into the volume mixer. Zoom's all the way up.
But I sound good on your end, right?
Yeah, you sound fine for me. So I don't know. We'll see, because I got him cranked. I mean, I guess if I could. Is there a way to change audio settings in Zoom?
In Zoom? You want to push me up in Zoom?
Yeah.
Zoom does not care about audio at all.
Yeah, which is weird because it's one of the only things it does.
Encourages shitty audio. I do not understand.
Yeah, Zoom's all the way up.
Let's compress the crap out of everything.
Right. Yeah.
And you're like, well, okay, that's great. That works really well for my grandmother. How about for those of us who actually want to hear things? And
right.
No, this is fine for everyone. I mean, you can turn on stereo, although it's buried somewhere that I've seen once and will never see again.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's this is just the default platform, but it is by no means an ideal platform.
Yeah.
And we've only had a year to sort of chase down the ideal platform for teaching.
Yeah.
So the fact that we stuck with Zoom all the way through, despite its obvious flaws, is wonderful.
Yeah.
Really good. It's so funny to me, the year in academia
is
not time enough for anyone to do anything to adjust to any situation.
No, that is very true.
Emergency, we have to remake everything, but we're going to do it just the way we did before, but we're going to use a half-ass video platform.
Okay.
Don't expect me to take you seriously.
Did you get it? I said to Jay Needham.
You'll be here. Maybe it's just you and me, man.
Yeah, right.
Fine. I'm good with that.
We started here, we end here.
That's right, exactly. Just me and Dylan.
Just Thelma and Louise driving off the cliff.
Matt on base.
Yep. Matt going, don't do it. Don't leave me alone. I've got you turned up in everything. So if it's still too quiet, I don't know what to do. I mean, it's maxed out in literally everything I can max it out in.
Yeah. I have no idea.
So how are we doing now, guys? Are we good? Is it better now? Is it still too quiet for him?
Is it too quiet? What if I do this?
Oh, jeez. I bet that's like, oh, I can hear that. That's perfect.
So I'll just do the whole defense this way.
Yeah, right. Yep, just like that. It's perfect. Okay, so Jay will be here momentarily.
All right.
Well, okay. So according to Mischief, it's good, and according to Neath of the Veil, I can hear him well enough. So whatever I did, it's now good.
It's very important that they be able to hear me.
It's way more important than me. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
what am I gonna say?
It's a general rule, yeah.
I like my book. I'm not gonna say anything of value.
Actually, I think that's a really good, because if you don't like it, why would I?
Yeah,
You know?
right. Yeah.
I want you to be a big fan of your book. I want you to be I want you to be an advocate for your own work.
Right. I mean, you gotta like what you sell, right? Like that's kind of how it works.
Well, I think a lot of people don't, though. I think a lot of people in your position and in my position spend a lot of time writing stuff they hope other people will like.
Yeah.
And
It's
such a terrible and obvious mistake.
Mm.
But it is almost, because it is such a terrible and obvious mistake, it is also almost universal.
Right. Yeah. Well, and
It's just weird. I mean, literally everybody will tell you, oh, in your art, be yourself. And 3 people I know actually do that.
well, and I've noticed too that there's a lot of like false humble. So it's like you go to a reading and somebody gets up on the stage and they're like, yeah, I mean, I wrote this last night. I don't know how I feel about it. I might delete this later. And then they read their short story and it's like, well, now I'm all bummed. You know what I mean? Like I want the writer to go up there and be like, you're going to be fucking crazed out.
Well, what? Yeah, exactly. It's just so weird. I mean, I suppose there are other, but did concert pianists get up there and go like, man, my fingers are short and fat. And
Right.
Is you are not going to enjoy this.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I hope you guys like it.
It's like, I have nothing to say. I don't really think it's anything special.
I have work published in Monkey Bicycle. And anyway, so this is a story.
Fish bicycle.
Yeah. Right. This is a story about my dad.
Not growing up
As a middle class.
yes, as a middle class person.
As a middle class white person.
I mean, it's really amazing. I've just been reading a book by Robert Graves, like the guy who wrote I, Claudius and Claudius the God. Great early 20th century novelist.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a nonfiction book about Lawrence of Arabia, about T.E. Lawrence.
Okay.
Whom he actually knew. He had known him for 6 or 7 years at the time he was writing this book.
Right.
And you just go like there was a world where there were people like T.E. Lawrence. You know what I mean? and that was what a great novelist would spend 2 or 3 years of his life doing. It's like examining the life of this weird little individual.
Yeah.
Right, who literally became like the emperor of the Arabs, and then stopped because he knew it was wrong, right, and that it was not good for the new Arab nation.
Yeah.
For him to be in charge of it, and I'm like, and now I'm gonna read about how you smoke dope and it makes you impotent and
right, yeah,
yeah,
and then you cry at the end. Because you were taught a lesson by the story.
Right. And always a lesson, always and then I realized, what a pissant I was. And I'm like, I could have told you that at the beginning.
Well, the thing that's really annoying about it is they think it's so edgy and new to teach a lesson where the character doesn't then overcome their flaw. It's like, well, that's what those dumb hero journey books do. See, what I do is I leave off the satisfying ending.
Right, exactly. I do all the stuff that the stuff I hate does, except for the really satisfying ending.
Yeah, right.
Okay? No, I mean, I'm just realizing I've actually gotten re-persuaded by my son-in-law and daughter about Star Wars and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been rewatching the movies and the cartoons and stuff with their commentary, and they're kind of filling me in on the knowledge. And I think it's clumsily done, and
Sure.
I mean, but it's an arc that takes place over 40 some years, right? And it has
Yeah.
had so many hands involved in it. But I'm just like, yeah, this is obvious, but it's really entertaining,
Right.
and and you're like, oh, that guy who used to be this weird callow guy,
Mm-hmm.
like now he's a hero, but we know he's going to end up as as a villain. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting how
Yeah.
satisfying stuff is. All you have to do is let academics tell you what's kind of dumb and not nuanced.
Right.
No, you'll love it.
And then pursue that. Yeah. Like,
Yeah, exactly. And then
yeah.
just do that. Here's Jay.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Yeah, Star Wars is a great teaching tool too. I really like it as a teaching
Oh
tool.
my God, you can learn so much.
Yeah.
There he is.
Professor
Good
Needham,
afternoon, gentlemen.
how are you doing?
Now
I'm
let's see.
doing well, thanks. Good to see
Hey,
you.
Good to see you too.
We are streaming to our Twitch network.
Yep.
Jay. We're streaming out to the Neophyte Studios network. So say hi to all our viewers.
Yep.
Okay.
Everybody. All of our only
Good
fans.
afternoon.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I don't think this has ever been done before. I'm pretty sure it hasn't. I would.
No, I am quite sure, having done no research.
Yep.
On the subject, I am quite sure this is the first MFA thesis defense that has been streamed live on Twitch.
Yep. Certainly writing.
Going to be gaming and discussion of gaming.
Yep.
So we're in the right place. All right. Well, shall we proceed?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay,
Are you ready, Jay?
Jay's here. Everything's good to go. All right. Well, so welcome. I'll address myself to the three people I can see, but to anyone who is observing, thank you very much for being here. This is the thesis defense of MFA candidate Dylan Davis in the MFA program in creative writing fiction element at Southern Illinois University Carbondale, and this is the culmination. This is the capstone of 3 years, right? So
Mhm.
it's been about 3 years ago that we would have admitted you, Dylan.
Yep.
Right. So it's almost a perfect 3 year cycle from admission to thesis defense, so this is the culmination of that 3 year time. We will talk for 45 minutes, an hour, however long it takes us to establish what we need to establish. This is called a defense, but in my opinion, no defense is needed. If I let a thesis come to defense, it means I believe it is defensible and will be successfully defended. So
Mhm.
in a way, this is probably going to be more like a conversation among artists. Two established artists and one up and coming artist, in which the established artist will ask questions and probe and in which you, Dylan, will demonstrate what you have done and learned over the past 3 years.
Okay.
The other part of this defense is that given that this is the first time we have done this sort of stream, given that Dylan is the first of what I hope will be eventually a large cadre of SIUC MFA fiction students who are doing their work not only in conventional literature, although a quite sizable novel, a really almost unbelievably long novel. I mean, what is it, 1,000 pages, Dylan?
Yeah.
Seems like 1,000 pages.
It's 10,000 pages.
Okay, well, yeah, it's just a really big, long novel. It's a regular sized novel. It's about 80,000 words.
Yeah.
In which a conventional novel forms perhaps the heart of the thesis, but then there are these ancillary parts around it, right? That there are, we live in a digital world. We are all digital citizens now, and so SIUC is transitioning our program. Well, we are transitioning our fiction program from a conventional, literary program which is focused on the book, right, into a program that is focused on a major work of narrative in any form that narrative now takes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be happy to have an epic narrative poem, right? If you want to write a great long poem about the siege of Troy, already been done, so it's probably not a great idea. But if but whatever, so all the way from epic poetry, from 3,000-year-old model epic poetry up to games, all of that is part of our milieu here. And
Mm-hmm.
Dylan is really the first of our people to from the beginning have had that right, because it's very recent that I haven't been thinking of the book as the heart of the MFA process.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm moving away from the idea that the thesis is the heart of the MFA process, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm much less interested in the end product than I am in the process of getting there. And so I'm glad you completed a successful novel, and I think it's quite a successful novel. I enjoyed it.
Cool.
And but at the same time, like part of what I want to talk to you about today, Dylan, and Jay, of course, you may take this any direction you like, but part of what I want to talk to you about is the process through which you have gone over the last 3 years.
Uh-huh.
Because your transformation is probably, I've worked with you very closely the whole time you've been here.
Yeah.
You've been my research assistant in the College of Liberal Arts Digital Humanities Lab. And so I've followed your progress, and I think your progress has been something like mine, right? A move away from the idea of the thesis as 3 years in which you, the MFA is 3 years in which you produce a thesis at the end,
Mm-hmm.
right? And more like 3 years in which you learn to be the writer you wished you were before you came to the MFA, or you learn what being a writer actually is. And right, and you've heard me say, a poet is simply a maker. Right? That's the root of the word. Poetry is a maker. And we're making things now in all kinds of venues. Jay is here because you've studied sound with him a considerable amount, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've done as much work in sound as you have in any area of what you're doing. So
Yeah.
we'll talk about that too. But it's a real evolution of the creative writing MFA. That the three of us are sitting here today. We're streaming on Twitch, and a large chunk of your work is a game and a podcast.
Yeah.
And that's new. Like you're the first to do this, and you won't be the last.
Right.
And I hope you're just the tip of the spear, and there are many, many more to come. And if anybody's listening or knows anybody who wants to come to an MFA that does what we do,
this is the one. Yep.
Yeah, but we're it. Like, nobody else is doing it. So
yep.
That's a long intro, Dylan. And
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's good.
But I really do. I don't have any test I need to put you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You performed more than admirably over the course of your 3 years here. I'm just intrigued to hear kind of the narrative of how this narrative came about.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So should I do that now, or does Jay want to talk about?
Let's let Jay.
Yeah, absolutely.
You and I have talked a lot, and I've just talked until we're all blue in the face. So let's turn it over to Jay. Jay may have some condemnation coming out for you.
No, but thank you, and great to be here with all of you here on the committee, and to everyone who's watching as well. The pursuit of a terminal degree is just that, right? It's a fast 3 years, right, Dylan? I imagine it went pretty quickly.
Yeah, like way too fast.
Sure. And each stage of your progress, right, you sort of mature or sort of, go beyond various milestones. But I think, something I'd like to talk about and touch on, during our time together here during defense is having to do with how you integrate things.
Mm-hmm.
and I think it'd be curious for others, listening, watching as well, about how multi-platform narrative occurs.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And where you want to take it as well. Certainly, I want to talk a lot. There's sonic elements in there too, but I think it's most notable that you, like a lot of other authors and makers, are very interested in working across and through as many disciplines as you can work on at once.
Mm-hmm.
Now, while in the 80s and 90s this used to be like the kind of career killer, now it's actually seen as maybe not a requirement, right? Because that sort of binds it maybe too directly towards applied work.
Mm-hmm.
This has to do more with fluency, which is maybe a different tact to literacy. So fluency through these mediums, I'm thinking, has to do with how you trade parts of your story and tell them across different platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of one of the things I want to talk about today. So I'm just kind of letting you know my thematic. I'm going to try to, part of what I'm interested in is how these things integrate.
Great.
But I think it also has to do with who you are as an author,
mm-hmm.
maybe even some of your background that led to this. But we've had other conversations about that too.
Yeah. Cool. No, both those topics sound excellent.
Good. Yeah. So yeah, rather than kind of making this a super workshop,
mm-hmm.
Like the last workshop before you leave or whatever, because you don't like workshop that much. Workshop as it's currently defined, it's not like any workshop I've ever known. Like I grew up on a farm, and our workshop was a place where busted machinery went in and good working machinery came out, and whatever couldn't be fixed just got thrown away. Right.
Yeah.
That for me is a workshop.
Right.
So I'm not concerned about trying to have yet another workshop for you after years and years and years of workshop. And I hope never to do another workshop-y thesis defense again. So,
I don't know. Maybe we should stop right here. Dylan, did you get me the lit review on Stanislaw Lem?
Yeah, you don't see a lot of welding students critiquing each other's T-joints. That's not a particularly common thing at welding school. Usually it's the professor who does it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's so weird to me, because we'll have a workshop, like a graduate workshop, and all these first years come in, and they're like, and I'm like, just hold on.
That was like me. That was how I was when I got here.
No, that's what I want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
I want you to talk to your past self and to future versions of Dylan who will show up at the SIU MFA. So why don't you begin to tell us a little bit about your process,
sure.
About your pilgrim's progress while you've been here, but be sure it ends before anybody gets redeemed.
Yeah, right.
Go all the way through all the boring stuff. Then when you get to the satisfactory ending, leave it off.
No, I'm going to cut that off and then I'm going to cry.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's literary.
That's literature. So I think one of my earliest memories of the MFA was in one of the very first workshops I took with you, Pinckney, because you were the first workshop I had. And I remember Isaiah read a short story or a scene, and he said, or it was in second person. And I said, why did you choose second person? And I remember you looked at me like I had just slapped a dog, and you were like, don't ask that question. And I was like, what? Because in all of my undergraduate creative writing workshops, that's how it was.
Why is this present tense? Why is this third person?
Right.
Why is this first person?
Right.
That's always where everything starts.
Yeah. And I remember thinking like, oh, okay, well, so he just wants me to ask the right question. So I kept trying to come up with better questions, right? Like, so every week I'd come back and I'd have what I thought was a better question for the writer. And you're like, don't ask that. That's a writer question. Those are dumb. And I was like, shit, like, what do I do? And at about the end of the first semester, I think is when it clicked. And especially in the second semester, when I got into the second workshop, which was a very traditional workshop. And in that traditional workshop, I was bored to death because I didn't feel like I was progressing. And that was kind of when I developed the idea of the welding students critiquing each other's T-joints kind of thing, where I just don't think it wasn't working for me because it was like, none of us know anything. I know. What do I have to say about your story? I know nothing about it. I know nothing about fiction. And so at that point was when I'd also kind of gotten over my anxiety to switch back to genre fiction, because it was very expected in the MFA.
Stories about crippled children in Utah.
That's what I was doing. Yep.
Like they were sitting around in abandoned houses, like beating lizards to death and, contemplating the dust.
Yep. Yeah, that was basically what I wrote. I was writing a lot of very traditional, very quiet stories. Very, very, very.
A story in which nothing happens.
But everything happens. But yeah, so very quiet stories that I thought would make people I thought would make other MFAs go, oh yes, very, very interesting. And then I realized that was dumb and I shouldn't do that. So then I wrote, and I remember this happened in the first semester, I wrote a cyberpunk piece, cyberpunk scene, very first like genre I'd probably written since I was like 13 or something. And I liked it so much that when I was going into the second semester, I kept thinking about it all the time. I would think about it, was because Alcyon, as you know, in the novel was originally called Zimmy. That was the name of that. Because I was still trying to do the literary thing. Like I was trying to make Alcyon the cute frog that the kid tortured in my literary short stories, right? So
I forgot about the frog.
Yeah, the frog. And so when I wrote that, I kept thinking about it, and I was like, well, there's something wrong here. Like, why am I thinking about that all the time? And so I think what the MFA did for me more than anything else, and this I think should be taken by everybody who's either in the MFA now, is at another MFA, or is thinking about doing an MFA, is that if you go into it and you have professors like Jay and Pinckney, they unlock that thing that you locked away from yourself, right? Like where you're like, well, I can't do that because I'll never get published. And then you come in and they're like, what are you doing?
Publishes Cyberpunk.
Yeah, nobody. Yeah, the biggest game in the world. Yeah.
Cyberpunk, like a Cyberpunk game. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I know.
Cyberpunk doing well.
Yeah, I can't imagine. But
so crazy though, isn't it?
Right.
We're like, well, that just won't fly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that Western.
Nobody watches those. So yeah, but then I think what happened from there was I was desperate to get out of teaching English 101, and as I think many great stories start. And so I was being desperate to get out of 101. I was mining my past, and I had done a podcast, a relatively successful podcast before I got into the MFA for 4 years about. So I knew how to edit audio, and I remember Pinckney at that time. It's an unbelievable coincidence that Pinckney happened to be completely fed up with the traditional MFA structure, like the year I got there. It was an astounding occurrence because I was ready to go. Because I had wanted to do fiction in podcast forever. That was all I'd wanted to do. And then when Pinckney was like, well, we're going to do fiction podcasts, I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Because I already knew it. So Pinckney and I kind of linked up in that way pretty early on because we were the only two people at that time who knew enough about it and also wanted to do it. And so from there we built it, and then it kind of just snowballed. Like we built a podcast lab at SIU by ourselves. Like I went to Lowe's and I bought PVC pipe.
We had 2 weeks to do that.
Yeah.
Before the semester began.
Yeah, right. And I just remember thinking all this time, like the whole time that was happening, as I was literally with a hacksaw in Feiner. I mean, sorry, hopefully nobody's here that's from admin, but building a tent so that we could put microphones in it, and building all of that so that we could actually make podcast fiction, right? And making that stuff just kept getting more and more fun. And that's when I was like, well, I got to go hang out in RTD. And that's how I met Jay. And Jay completely blew my mind in terms of how you can make audio, and taught me Pro Tools. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. You're able to get a job out of that.
Yeah, right. Unbelievable. And then during the last like year and a half, it was all games, right? You hired me as the research assistant, which thank you, because that saved me, because I was going to be teaching again. And then we just learned Unity and made games, and audio goes in games, and so does writing. So that's kind of how that evolved. But
you very seldom find a game
that
has writing and no audio.
Pretty rare.
That would be because even a text adventure even will have rudimentary sound. I mean,
Yeah.
the text adventures I was publishing in 1986 had actually some fairly sophisticated sound.
Right.
For the Commodore 64, it had a really good little 3-voice synth in it
Mm-hmm.
that you could really manipulate. We did some cool stuff with it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I found it. I found your text adventure.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did. I went looking.
Trilogy of Time.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's super cool. I actually couldn't get it to run though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
Well,
couldn't.
it does run, but yeah, that's
Yeah,
I made good money off of that thing.
Yeah, you telling me that made me go, oh, that's what I would rather do. That would be much. When I remember the first time you told me that, like very clearly in your office, about how you made money selling your text adventure game, and I was like, what? I want to do that. That sounds way better.
It was a blast. I mean, it really was wide open. Like you didn't have to know anything or anybody. There were no gatekeepers.
Yeah.
And we went on sale at Crazy Eddie's. I remember, like so. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what else to cover in terms of that.
I mean, that's a good. I think that's a good intro. And since you kind of ended on sound, maybe again let's go back to Jay.
Sure.
And see what he might be interested in.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to loop it into the thesis work, and
sure.
and maybe just ask you a question, and maybe tell us a little bit more about sound. Also in relation to the game as well. Into how the disc jockey works
mm-hmm.
as a place of sound, right? Because it's sort of this, crazy dystopia. We can talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But in many ways, it's sort of like a kind of a trip through a city suburb.
Right.
There's many things that are like kind of familiar,
mm-hmm.
But they're sort of put through the gamified kind of urban filter of funk.
Yeah, right.
The future, a broken future.
Mm-hmm.
But tell me a little bit more about like how you went about thinking about. I'd like to hear your thought process a bit about how you heard the future.
Sure. Okay.
How did you create the sound of that future? What's it made of? What?
Right.
Maybe why do things sound like they do?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. So one of the thank you, Matt, for linking the game in the chat. So one of the things that
that's awesome, by the way.
Yeah, Matt's doing a great job.
That's my other research assistant, and these two guys have saved my life.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I'm facing open heart surgery. It's probably all over for me.
Nah, you're good. You'll be fine. No, you're good. Don't say that. Okay, so so to go over the audio part. I remember when I took your classes, Jay, I was really interested in the way, especially with Ambio, the Sennheiser plugin that allows you to spatialize audio. With Ambio, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I can actually sit here and count the feet between me and a particular object, right? And that was amazing because one of the things that I think is really interesting about watching film, for example, is that film, it's all kind of laid out. Like, where everything is, and you don't get to do a whole lot of imagining. But with audio, because you don't have that visual fidelity, visual medium, you kind of get to be a little bit more creative. It's the same way how like an author, they won't describe the main character very detailed because they let the reader kind of make up who the protagonist is, right? And I felt like I could get away with the same thing with audio. So I'm actually really glad that I went to audio before the game because because it was a great way for me to think in terms of like, I don't have exposition here. I don't have it. I don't have the normal things I would have in fiction writing. So how do I do it? And it was all physicality, which is hilarious because that's what you're supposed to do in fiction anyway. But that's what audio told me, right? And so with the audio, I was imagining what a future America looks like, right? Because the book, just so everybody knows, everybody who's here, the book Salt Lake City takes place in Salt Lake City, Utah, in like a future dystopia in which all of the coastal cities have been flooded. So all of the coastal populations have moved inland, which has caused Utah and particularly Salt Lake City to explode in population, right? Because everybody's coming inland, which is already kind of happening anyway, except for it's money instead of rising sea levels. But because Utah's like crazy now. I can't even believe it. I just got back here and there's like a cajillion people. But yeah, so moving them back here, and I was imagining kind of the overreaching effect of what that would look like if all of these populations had to move inland. And then being out in the Midwest for those years kind of taught me a lot about how the Midwest sees itself in terms of a farming place, in terms of a farming community, in terms of like literally feeding the world. And that's when it kind of sparked the idea that like in a dystopian future, how the hell are they going to eat? How are they going to eat? And that was when Anthropology, the podcast, came to mind, because the main characters of that
I'm going to ask you, are you prepared to play a little bit of Anthropology for us?
Oh yeah, totally. I just have to pull
you don't have to do it right now, but
Sure.
I really think that'll be an effective part of this presentation, since we're discussing exactly this, right?
Right.
What's implied through sound, how you get exactly the right detail in the sound, and that keys the imagination of the listener.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
You turned green, by the way.
I turned green?
Yeah, maybe not for anybody else. Jay, is he green for you?
No.
Oh, okay. When my view going right now, you have a weird green cast.
Oh no! I opened Spotify.
So I will.
Just don't look at me.
I'm gonna. I'm trying not to anyway. I'm gonna send you a video here.
Yeah, please do.
Send you so you can. Oh no, you're back again.
Okay, cool.
Maybe I was hallucinating.
Yeah, maybe it's your eyes. You're green with envy. So anyway, so in Anthropology, it's never outright stated in the podcast, but what the mechanized warriors, the mech warriors, are fighting over is Iowa. They think these like semi-sentient, violence-capable units are fighting over Iowa because it's the farmland. And they call it a wasteland in the podcast, but it's all it is just them fighting over farmland. All the corporations are fighting over farmland, because I would obviously be one of the most important resources they could possibly make in a world that's overpopulated and doesn't have food. And so that logistic kind of birthed Anthropology, at least season 1 of Anthropology, because season 2 is now in production.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. Anthropology is super cool. It's on Spotify, Matt. You just search Dylan Davis fiction, and I think it's the only thing there. But yeah, so or wherever podcasts are listened to. And so yeah, that was kind of the kernel of that idea, was the idea of these semi-sentient robots is a theme that runs throughout all of it, right? Through the game, through the book, through everything. Because I just love semi-sentient robots, but
good band name, semi-sentient robots.
It is a good band name. But yeah, semi-sentient robots fighting over things is just great. And so to answer the question of hearing the future, I think for the game, Cyberpunk definitely has its conventional music choice, right? Like it's that kind of industrial techno, kind of grindy, and that was where I got the soundtrack for that game. Although that was always a placeholder soundtrack, I actually wanted to make my own. Because I don't know if you remember Pinckney and Dreams, that like little film I made where I made my own music for that. That's the exact track that I want to use in the game.
And this is in Dreams, just for anybody who doesn't know it. Dreams is a $40 program for the PlayStation. I assume it'll be playable on the 5. I know it's
it is. Yeah.
Pro. It's a complete game making, or not even game making, like media studio.
Right.
It includes a recording studio, a mixing studio, an editing studio, visuals, modeling, everything you would do to create a 3D, graphic experience.
Right.
Digital experiences in Dreams. And
yeah.
So we've utilized here this game and this console, right?
Mm-hmm.
Video game console, the thing that writers have traditionally been meant to despise and condescend to. And a lot of our students, you made first use of it, Dylan, but we've had a bunch, primarily undergraduates,
Yeah.
really make some moving stuff
Mm-hmm.
in dreams, and some really remarkably complex stuff in
Yeah.
dreams, and
Yeah.
not like tech people, like just people who've never made a sort of tech, a digital artifact in their lives and never thought they would, or
Right.
making cool things
Yeah.
in
Well,
dreams.
and I think that's kind of I think the reason why is because they're undergraduates, right? Like they grew up with it even more than I did, even more than you guys did. You know what I mean? So when you're given a smartphone at 10, you just kind of you've developed a sense of literacy that I don't have. Yeah, and because I didn't have a phone until I was like mid high school or something. And so that literacy I think goes a long way, and I think that those are the people I'm trying to sell to. Those are the people I'm trying to convince to get the book, right? And I feel like if I don't show the chops there, then it just doesn't work. It's like it's a hello fellow kids moment kind of thing. You got to make your own thing, but you got to understand that you're doing it right. Like, so for example, in the book, I use the wrong code for Alcyon. Like the chapter of the book that Alcyon is the perspective and it's all in code. I am absolutely using the wrong code. There's not a chance in this world that Alcyon would be programmed by a JavaScript or C plus or but I'm aware of it. I know that I am, and I did it that way on purpose because none of the tech in that book really makes any sense. I think it's not a very tech accurate book.
It's not hard science
No,
fiction.
no.
Yeah, it's more an exploration of ideas
Hmm.
through that exotic setting and
Yeah,
milieu, right?
right, right. And so that is kind of me a little bit laughing at myself in some ways, but also in the audio fiction and in the game fiction, it's me going, well, I have to offer something that nobody else is offering, right? Like that dialogue bullets, for example, the dialogue expenditure system is something that I haven't seen before because I think a lot of the people who are very tech literate don't think about it like we would think about it. How we view the medium, right? Or how we could imagine the medium.
When can you talk about that a little bit? Because I mean, right, the conventions of, and we'll look at the game a little bit too. Um, Although we have to be mindful of Jay's time because
Sure.
I know he has another commitment. But the way you handle dialogue, and we'll see it in action when you show us a little bit of the game,
Sure.
is right. We're used to things like, for me, I think of Skyrim, right? I
Sure.
come up to an NPC, I'm offered four choices. I understand that I'm eventually going to go through all of those parts of the conversation tree. So I try to pick like the ones that seem least boring and probably won't be 10 minutes long first. So I
Yeah.
can maybe, you know what I mean? But I find that extremely tedious
Yeah.
as somebody who's a novelist, a short story writer, playwright, screenwriter. I find that an incredibly tendentious way. Now, it may be the best that was available because of the tech, but it's a really tendentious way to imagine human interaction,
Right. Right.
right? And how many memes are based on like ineffective NPC character interaction in
Right.
Skyrim,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was an adventurer until I took an arrow to the knee, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's famous because it's so like rote and goofy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Hmm.
for those of us who are trying to make these things into something something truly dramatically powerful, engaging, and human, right? We have to try to rethink these mechanics
Yeah.
that
Right.
have been accepted, that have become conventional, right? They're like,
Hmm.
they're like Greek drama with the, conveying emotion by holding your hands a certain way, or, kabuki, these, or the wine dark sea, like they're these conventions that need to be very much need to be rethought in order for this stuff to work the way we want it to work. So
Right.
how did you come up with the word bullets? Like,
I think it actually kind of has its root in audio a little bit. So how it worked was when I first started taking classes from Jay and when I was taking the podcast fiction class from you, Pinckney, I was I listen to an absolute colossal amount of podcast fiction. Like I don't know if there's a fiction podcast I haven't heard now. At least in the years of 2019 to 2020. And one of the things that I noted very early on was that a lot of these, a lot of the artists that are working in that medium, they tend to not trust their audience enough. A lot of the artists working in that medium tend to not trust their audience enough. And so, because they're afraid that they're not going to get it. So one of the very common things in podcast fiction is for there to be just an absolute assload of exposition where the characters are literally saying like, why am I running down the street? I have to turn right soon, when that doesn't really matter, you know? And as that's gone on, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I'm getting Discord notifications. So as that's gone on, or as I was listening to that, I started, and then when I moved into games, I was seeing a very similar thing, right? Where the developers are afraid that their audience isn't going to get it, or they're going to miss it, and then they're going to complain that they didn't have enough choices, or whatever. And to me, it's like, well, I mean, I have no choices in a book. I have no choices in a book, and I have no choices in a podcast I'm listening to. So I'm fine with restriction of choice and trusting the audience more. So like in my podcast fiction, none of the characters are ever doing or saying anything that they wouldn't normally do. They talk to each other and they don't announce like, "Hey, don't get so close there, sir." Because you don't need it. You can just have the audio get closer. And then moving into the game world, I was thinking the exact same thing. So I took a lot of inspiration from like Chris Avallone. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he's a super duper famous game writer. He wrote like Planescape Torment and the Baldur's Gate games, and he's a big guy. And playing through his games, I noticed a really interesting thing in his dialogue where he can kind of trick you into talking to an NPC to the point where you actually think you're kind of talking to a real person. And it's super daunting at first because when you're talking, like I went into a bar in one of his games and I was talking to this woman who I was supposed to not like, but I kind of liked her. She was kind of a cool person. And I had like 7 dialogue choices or something. And a lot of them were the same and they were all like a sentence long. And I was like, what the hell? And a lot of those dialogue choices were so minutely different, but it made me think like, oh, he's genuinely trying to get me to think about what I want to say to this person.
Yeah, so it's not like, they aren't diametrically opposed.
Right, yeah.
It's not like, oh, I'll be your slave, or oh, I'll hit you in the head.
Right.
They're variations in tone the way there are in real human
right.
interactions.
Yeah. And I did the conversation. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. That's all.
But in that conversation, I tried it a couple of different times, and I noticed that the slight variations in tone did change how the NPC reacted to you, which I found just like mind blowing. It blew me away. But anyway, so whereas in many other games, particularly Skyrim, like you're talking about, I find that one of the things that is irksome about it is that it's very like when you talk to an NPC, it's your dialogue choices are actually just your gameplay choices. It's like information, lore, or like fight. You know what I mean? Like they could just as easily give you those 3 things, and then everybody would choose fight, and then they'd move on. You know. And so then I was like, well, how do we not do that? Because I can't make a combat system. Like I'm not advanced enough in Unity development that I could ever hope to create even a Skyrim combat system.
To complicate that world and the narrative is a kind of ecology. Right?
Yeah.
Which I think complicates it, and you put the player, the reader, the audience member, you're more the caretaker.
Yeah.
In some way. Because I see the wiki as sort of your Silmarillion to Tolkien's Hobbit, right? In this way, or Lord of the Rings, right? So we see this relationship be a kind of a key or a guide. The book, the wiki, the electronic book, now becomes this a different kind of living document, right?
Yeah.
Which blurs the line between fiction and reality, or is this really a crit of the LDS, or what the hell is going on? So I think making it more murky like that is interesting. because it looks and smells and walks and talks like the future that's broke right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's knowingly and unknowingly, I think people have a desire to put those things together.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they operate on different platforms, I think, that's okay, right? Get off the subway, take the bus.
Mm-hmm.
You're still moving, right?
Right. Yeah.
Terrible analogy, but run it with me.
No, I get it. That makes perfect sense to me. I actually thought it was great.
Nice about that. Thanks. But in many ways, right? Like that's okay, right? Because where's the agency there, and where's also, I think, and it's leading to a question, I swear. How much success of a story's play, believability,
mm-hmm.
and affect has to do with the author now revealing that they aren't the expert, don't
mm-hmm.
know it all, and are kind of fallible.
Right.
Which is a little bit of a shift in authorship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's important today? I guess it's a different way of saying humble across platforms.
Mm-hmm.
But like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's
it's a really good question.
Yeah, I think
there's rust in the system, and it, and it's okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're building it constantly.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think you can actually look to marketing for this. I think like I find it very interesting the number of businesses which have completely changed the way they advertise. Like businesses are really trying to look like they're talking real to you. You know what I mean? And I've
not generally successfully, I think.
Yeah, not successful.
That's
no.
definitely what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it's what they're trying to do, right? And for me, like I think that authenticity and that genuineness is actually very endearing. Because if you suggest like, look, I don't know how to make games, but this is what I came up with, and this is the dialogue bullets was kind of my selling point. It's like, look, I don't know how to make games. I can't make a combat system, but what I can do is write dialogue. And so what I'm going to show you is if a writer or an artist were thinking about a genuine dialogue system, this is how they would look at it, right? And
that's why I think the novels and the other pieces sort of work together. They don't need to be totally connected.
mm-hmm.
At times, I wish they were,
mm-hmm.
Because that would be great.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's okay. I think that because any good MFA, I think, is not just about what you accomplish. I think Pinckney was, leading into this as well, but it's what you will be doing after.
Right.
And that's it.
So
and I
something
think
about the promise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, Jay. Please go.
But I think, that maybe speaks to, where you're working across the platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess then my other question would be like, then how do you still tell a story like Salt Lake City across these platforms? Like, where would you put focus on certain elements? Now that you're sort of writing across, it's like a lazy Susan on steroids. Right? You've got this thing going, and where do you stop and then do claymation, and then you spin and you stop it, right? Okay, it's Rock'em Sock'em
That's
Robots.
the thing we add to the
Right?
MFA.
Yeah. Claymation. Yep.
maybe super marionation,
Right?
like the old,
Right.
the old Jerry Anderson shows.
Right.
That's with huge heads.
Right, exactly. Puppets.
Yeah.
Going to
The
puppets.
MFA.
So I guess that's right. When you're not just banging it out, when you're no longer suffering the curse of the white page,
Uh-huh.
you with your Olivetti,
Yeah.
now you're writing across all these platforms, right? So where do you put parts of the story? And they're not just Easter eggs, but how are you thinking of authoring across multiple platforms?
Well, I think for me, I think it's what I found going through Salt Lake City, and this is why I think this is such a great thesis project. I think the novel could have been a lot better. And and like you said, I think that the integration of the mediums could have been done more interestingly. But I think it was a great thesis because it taught me a lot of different ways of how to do it. So like, what I find interesting is now when I'm playing games, I notice certain things that I could do in a story, right? Like certain interactivity that I might be able to do in a story that I otherwise wouldn't have ever thought of if I never made a game. And the same goes in vice versa. When I'm writing, I think of things that I could think of how to interpret a story mechanic in Salt Lake City 2, and transport it or transpose it into a game form, right? So like Salt Lake City has tons of dialogue. There's so much dialogue in that book. And so I was thinking about dialogue a lot. And I think that's why I kind of came up with dialogue bullets in general. Like the seed of that idea is yeah.
And I like it. I agree, because I think that's where the novel really succeeds. It's in all the rich dialogue, is there in those interactions, because that's what kept me turning the pages. But I think, let's say, unlike the world building exercise on steroids that normally is cyberpunk, right, where Gibson, everyone else are usually like, wow, they're stacking on everything. You actually are world building across the platforms,
right?
So I wonder, if that's how the story is maintained. Literature, older literature, revolved around the world building that way. But
right
now, have it be sort of immersive or sonic, right, or livable or believable or trustable.
Yeah.
Maybe one of its requirements is that it actually exists, and it has its own wiki, has
right.
its false and real lives, has its implied narratives, it has its quirky corners, that are hard to find.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a really great point, because I remember early on, one of the things I really, really don't like in books is when they take forever to read, when they take a really long time. And the reason why they take a really long time is because I notice that the author is doing things that I don't care about, right? Which is telling me the plot of the story and the movement of the characters. And so I had thought early on, how am I going to get around that problem? Because I do not want to write a 120,000 word novel where like Gibson's technique was just, well, I'll just leave him in the dark. Like that was kind of how Neuromancer works. Like it's a super confusing book. There's not a lot. I mean, I like it because the characters know what they're doing, but I can't always visualize what's going on in that novel. And so in my book, what I found out, and I did a test on it, I made the book into a Mobi file for a Kindle, and I hyperlinked a wiki page to a particular word, like fumer or fet or some one of the lingo words in the book, and I tapped it on my Kindle, and lo and behold, it brought up the wiki page, and I was like, well, the writers should just be doing this, because it makes way more sense to me. I mean, why would you ever stop in a paragraph to explain, fet, which is short for amphetamine. It's a drug that's used in the world of Salt Lake City. Like, why would you do that when you could just have the characters talk about fet, and then on first mention, just have a little like wiki link that you can tap, and then it brings up. And then usually the inevitable question, what's that?
You would have been spared the citation of Moby Dick, right? If you could have been, if it had just said like, this is what this is what a grampus is,
right?
And you just hit the button, but otherwise just kept reading on about the love story among the crewmates.
Yeah. Well, and I think maybe at the time, I don't know a whole lot about Moby Dick, but I think maybe at the time that it was fine for that stuff to be in a book, right? It was.
Well, there was no other way, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have the Nature Channel. No one from
right.
Illinois had ever seen a whale, and no one even on a whaling ship had ever seen a whale in the water. Like they didn't know, right? I mean, none of this was familiar. So he built a wiki for the book and put it in the book. And it's actually a hilarious wiki. Like, he's clearly screwing with the reader. And I love it when contemporary readers are like, I'm like, he is just laughing at you right now. Melville's so happy.
Right.
Because he was definitely screwing with you. But I mean, yeah, it's different technologies, right? But we've stuck with, what he had available to him was that serial technology. Yeah, but we're in a random access world, right? You don't have to encounter narratives in the serial way we have always, that our technology has meant we have to encounter our narratives.
Yeah. And
we've come to assume that that's the way narratives work, because that's how narratives work when they're on paper glued to cardboard.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But we're in a very different world.
Right.
Yeah,
Not only that.
Could I add to that?
Yeah.
Right, to build on to Pinckney's point too, which I think you might agree, the end note really is not just a point of reference anymore, right? So, and it's not just a place of postmodern inclusion, right? Like Wallace, all of
right?
That, right. It actually, are now actually people find that information, like Pinckney was saying. It's actually, they need it, but don't. It's not required. So, I think that maybe authors like yourself, Dylan, are now going to be pointing in
Mm-hmm.
multiple directions, right?
Yeah.
In a kind of spherical space. It's not just a XYZ axis.
Right.
You know, that's pretty linear space.
Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering there too. And I really like how you're working across a number of different platforms.
Mm-hmm.
One last and lingering question I had for you was, like, sort of the top of the world, right? The top of the dystopia,
Mm-hmm.
in there, and in those kind of layered, classic ways. You know, whether we're thinking, about Zemlyantin, right, or even Metropolis, like in Lang, right? It
Yeah.
always has a kind of an architectural layer, and in Gibson, the top layer is this kind of affinity with spirituality, or leading out to the spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering, I didn't find that connection. I kind of assumed that I might be in there because there's a critique of LDS in Salt Lake City,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm just wondering, like, how you thought maybe faith or spirituality was built in, or maybe you just decided, I'm going to leave this out because I don't want it in there.
Well, I
But I
think,
almost thought it sort of capped the world
yeah.
in a way that I thought was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question.
A really good question.
So I think what's really interesting is because I was born and raised in Utah. I wasn't born in Salt Lake City, but I don't live far from Salt Lake City. And I've been there a whole lot, and I lived there for years. And one of the things that I find really interesting, and this is one of the things that I found really difficult about kind of how to convince people, because not only do people need to read a cyberpunk novel, but they also need to read, like with all the cyberpunk lingo, but they also need to read a book about Utah, which is like it's like we call it the Zion Curtain for a reason. Like it's a weird place.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I live behind the Zion Curtain.
That's great.
It's a pretty famous, yeah, for Utahns, it's non-Mormon Utahns, it's pretty famous. But one of the things I find really interesting about Utah is that the presence of wealth is so evident that it's really interesting. So like in Utah, I mean, I wish I could just like point my webcam out my window right now because you could see it for yourself. But in Utah, the richest people live on the mountain, and you can always see their houses, right? They're above you physically. And it's all down the Wasatch Front, from Brigham Young all the way down to like Santaquin, which is, the Wasatch Front basically. And they're called bench people. They live on the bench. And so I make multiple mentions to bench throughout the novel. But the thing that's really famous, and I think even Mormons would tell you this too, is that the further up the bench you go, or the farther up the bench you go, the less Mormon you find, right? So the more wealthy Mormons tend to be less faithful. I think in their heart of hearts they might say that. I don't know. I have some Mormon family members. I should ask them. Anyway, so the idea for me was that the city, Salt Lake City, is completely separated by height, right? And the reason why they're separated by height is because they actually do not want to interact with anybody beneath them, because that's how Utah kind of is. That's how the culture is. That's how Mormons are. Or not all Mormons, sorry. I don't mean to generalize. But from my experience as a child, getting kicked off the trampoline in midair when I was a Boy Scout by Mormons because I didn't go to church on Sunday, that was my experience.
You're trying to get too high, too early, Dylan. Too high, too early.
Right, yeah. And so in some ways, I think Salt Lake City actually is pretty vengeful. I think it's a pretty vengeful novel. I was getting back at a lot of people who I don't even know I needed to. I mean, I guess I did. I don't know, but I do remember surprising myself multiple times at how vindictive.
That's actually a super honest statement. What you just said there, I find that like super fascinating.
Yeah.
That you'd be that self-reflexive. Like, yeah, people I didn't even know.
Yeah, right.
Right. I needed to get even.
Yeah, I needed to get even with them. Yeah, there was so much anger. Yeah.
You're going to
teach asked about the length of the road, so there's a lot to get through.
That
Yeah.
kid who kicked you off the trampoline is going to feel terrible.
Yeah, Braden Chilcote. I'll never forget. But yeah, so
Look at you now.
yeah, right. Look at me now, defending my thesis on Twitch. But yeah, so I mean, I know that it is pretty foolish, but but I also did, but the book was almost written by a persona of me, like, because I don't feel particularly vindictive or vengeful against Mormons, but when I'd sit down to write, I was pissed. And I was late and I was like really angry, and I would get into the mode of I'm gonna take my revenge, and
Well, I think it works as a kind of a reckoning without being, too much navel gazing in this way, right? Or too romantic without reference.
Right.
Too self-referential without, so you bring us along.
Yeah. Well, and I think that goes back to the genuine and authentic thing too. Like, I'm aware of the fact that the book is pretty crass, and I'm aware of the fact that it, but I'm happy about it. Like, I'm actually just really,
shitty. I mean,
yeah. It's
not the polite volume.
Right. Yeah. It's punk. I mean, that's the thing that actually is really weird to me about cyberpunk, is that it's very cyber and not very punk, and I wanted it to be the inverse. I wanted it to be very punk with a little bit of cyber. And that was the way that I don't know, that was just the way that I did it. I made Joseph Smith into an AI that turned the religion into a corporation, and then, spoiler alert.
I don't know, man. I think it's well, like I say, I really want to be respectful of Jay's time.
Sure.
And I'm actually happy. I know he'll have to leave, but so why don't we, since he's sound,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, since he contributed mightily to the sound, can we hear some of Anthropology maybe?
Sure.
And before he has to go, and then if he has to go, then maybe you can play some of the game, just
sure.
So people on the Twitch stream will get to see some of that.
Yeah. Sounds good. Let's see. Hopefully, I probably need to share my screen, right? Share
That's
sound.
one of the things I like about OBS is it.
Oops, I'm listening to Fuck Fray by Zamilska. Sorry. No, let's not do that episode.
It's the terror of sharing your
Yeah, right. Okay, so can everybody hear that? Can you hear that?
I don't hear it.
It's hard to explain.
Did you click the
I did share sound, yeah.
Okay.
Um
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing it.
Jesus, fail. Goodbye.
6 weeks. Commander Lothway,
You don't hear that?
hail to the
Not
throne.
it.
Really? That's surprising. Huh.
Well, Zoom
Oh.
isn't really made for.
Oh, it's because my screen sharing is paused.
I've located the runaway VCU.
Got it.
They're out.
They. It is not a they. It is an it.
Of course, Commander Lothway.
Where are the blasphemers?
It and Pilot Gift are at latitude 75.38725142727 degrees north minus 139.7228.
Stop. What will we do about the blasphemers?
I thought you may ask that, Commander Lothway. I took the liberty of sending in a KDB.
Which one?
KDB, Zeus, Commander.
That seems a little unnecessary.
If we want the job done, Commander, we have to get the best.
I suppose we do.
I'll start patching into KDB, Zeus, when the drop is completed. Commander, hail to the throne on the eternally blissful day.
Yeah, so these are corporations fighting over Iowa.
I love the way they get frustrated with each other.
Yeah. Sorry.
No. You want to play some more?
Not able to be contained. It is merciless and bottomless. I will destroy VCU Anthropology and VCU Oxford.
I am laughing. That is such good news for the Lothwain Legion. Hail to the throne.
They will be erased from existence. Then I can rescue Pilot Gift. Unless Pilot Gift is compromised to thinking VCUs can have consciousness, then I will delete her soul, too.
Delete her soul. What fantastic poetry you speak, KDB Zeus. I look forward to hearing about your progress.
Kill. Death. Thought.
All right, I think that's good.
KDB Zeus.
KDB Zeus.
The naming
Yeah, thanks for
system in
playing
that is terrific. Like, I've just been watching the cartoon series based on the Pacific Rim movie, Pacific Rim in the Black, I think it's called, or Pacific Rim the Black.
Uh-huh.
And the way they name the mechs, I
Mhm.
love it because the names make no sense at all, but they're so evocative.
Right. Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, because they really are things like Gypsy Danger and
Right.
like the names of I don't know what old-fashioned criminals or something. I mean,
Right.
they're kind of wonderful.
Dylan and I had to talk about this too. That even some of the Navy tech writing background is it's osmotic, right?
Yeah, right.
There's a little bit of that just comes in. The thousands and thousands of pages of dry dialogue and
Right.
technical instruction that you've authored in the past.
Yeah.
This is a different kind of revenge.
Right. Yeah. A totally different kind of revenge
Now you're
against.
playing with it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, I wanted it to be a cartoon. An audio
For me, it's
cartoon.
another way that you're working with editorial forms.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not to leave that informed technical writing, about helicopters and everything else you worked on behind, but actually it becomes part of how it informs and suffuses into your narrative now.
Right.
Right. So it actually really gives you a sense of that. It gives you that the 1,000-yard stare, right?
Right.
So that gives you a level of accuracy, I think, which is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I wonder too with anthropology and its sense of time, I think it would be really interesting to evoke things even like mail art. I know I'm stretching back in here, but like I'm wondering if you can think about like telling a story that has to do with the media that maybe it doesn't exist anymore. In other words, are we finding anthropological records? Do you re-release a really funky lo-fi version on cassette?
I would love to do that.
Yeah, that would actually be really great. That would be,
Just thinking too, like different ways of hooking in the audience in a kind of an evidentiary manner,
Mm-hmm.
so that you have this hand-built object, or maybe it's a CD. Remember
Right.
those?
Yeah.
And, right. And it's maybe it's glitched in a specific way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's maybe there's parts of the story. Maybe you have to collect all 5.
Yeah.
And you release them. There's something about that where I want to make some of the finding and discovery of the anthropology communication almost like finding old military comm stuff.
Right. That'd be cool. That'd be
you
super
gotta
cool.
Take it out of the
That's a
desert.
great idea.
Yeah.
Such a good idea because I mean I watch that stuff on YouTube and TikTok. I'm subscribed to TikTok pages where it's it's just like helicopter gunship footage.
Yeah.
You
Right.
don't know where, you don't know. It's just this random weird story with this mechanical dialogue, just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
dialogue. As these guys
Right.
hover over something.
Yeah, no, that stuff is just cool. It's nice to listen to. It has its own musicality to it, right? Like that mill speak has its own kind of weird rhythm. But I love the idea of taking advantage of like the Amazon syndrome because like I don't know about you guys, but I get really excited. I buy stuff just so that I can have it show up on my doorstep. Like because I am excited about it. Like that's why I bought these headphones.
That's how I spend my life.
I'm just excited to get an
That's
Amazon
why I put in
package.
that's why I put in for research grants.
Right.
It's so much fun to go on B&H and be like, whoa, what if we had that?
Yeah, right. It's just you get excited about packages coming, and I don't know. I think that actually does kind of tap into the to use a term that I don't like, cultural zeitgeist, but like it kind of taps into that because people already like doing it, right? Like I think one of the things I wanted to do for Salt Lake City 2 is I want to publish it as a magazine, like literally in magazine form, because it would be so much smaller. Because I think people like now when they see a big book, they're like, ugh. Like, no, absolutely not. But if I could squeeze it into a magazine that's about that big on glossy paper and then put a disc inside it, like a demo disc in the old games.
That was how I used to get half my games.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Because usually a demo was enough back in the 90s.
Yeah, like that. God.
Gentlemen, I have to
Oh.
take off.
Yeah, no, I know you have to go, Jay. I will forward you the
appointments.
necessary paperwork
Please do.
and so forth. But really, thank you so much.
Yeah,
being
thanks, Jay.
with these
Right back at you. Thank you both so much, Dylan. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, it was awesome
Always
working
good
with
to
you.
work with you. And let's all stay in touch. And,
Absolutely.
Yeah, Pinckney, please just send me the paperwork and I'll turn it right around.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you. No, it was really great.
Right, yeah.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks. Great job, Dylan.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for teaching me everything. Oh, yeah. He's gone.
Well, he's a really big deal with the folks who go to jail.
Oh my gosh.
It's such a smart thing it's so great that we're hooked in with a guy like that.
Yeah, definitely.
He's just a killer. I've never heard him say anything wrong.
No.
Jay's never spoken. I've just thought, what?
Yeah, what are you saying? No, he always seems like he's very, I don't know. I just love Jay. Like every conversation I've ever had with him.
Just a great guy. And he's been so wonderful with our students.
Yeah.
And everything he teaches them is so useful.
I know.
It's why I wish MFA students got outside the MFA.
Right.
Right? Like, I think we should dump our forms of fiction courses.
Oh, totally.
And just make those just be like, it's an elective, but you cannot take it in the English department.
Right. Yeah.
You have to go do blacksmithing or glass blowing.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even make sense to take traditional forms of fiction classes, in my opinion, in general. Like, forms of fiction should be exactly what you're saying. It should absolutely be like because you don't learn anything about writing a novel in the forms of fiction novel writing class. You don't learn anything about like long form, that's not how you learn.
You're reading novels, right? I mean, that's the way to, you know how to learn to write a novel? Read a whole bunch of novels.
Right.
Like, I mean, tens of thousands of novels.
Right.
And at that point, you will be ready to write a novel.
Yeah.
If you're right.
Yeah.
Right? But I mean, most people think, well, if I read 7 novels and then take a few classes, and I'm like, no, take no classes and read 10,000 novels. But
right.
That's just useless, because they're all so busy.
Well, and so a lot of the characters in many, many novels, they want to have their character be good at something tangentially, like it kind of. And so to me, it's like, just go take a class in that, like go get good at it. You
want your character to be a blacksmith? Go, bang a hammer down on some metal for a few months.
Right. Yeah.
Of course. And the great thing about a university is it's got people like Jay in it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You didn't go to Jay and go, I'm going to be your best student ever. I know everything about audio, right?
Right.
You come in, you go, listen, man, I'm from a whole other world. Do you mind if I just get in on your world a little bit?
Right.
And he welcomed you in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I bet the same thing is true, like people should be taking agriculture classes. We have a whole university here, and we say, really, the best thing for you to do is talk to people who are pretty much just like you for 3 years.
Right. Yeah.
How does that make any sense? Like, what writers do is notice things. And we end up people who are noticing things when they do, because we're not allowed to notice things anymore, right? But when they do notice things, they're noticing things about people who are not that different from them.
Right.
And you end up very quickly in this like solipsistic, monomaniacal, like, here's yet another life of another sad person who's yet another, not very successful writer. It's like, ugh.
Yeah.
Maybe people in MFA programs like that, but there's not enough of them. And they don't read enough. They don't buy books. They don't read near as much as they say they do.
Right.
Yeah,
well, I don't know. Like, I get super excited when I'm reading a novel by somebody who was there. You know what I mean? Like,
that's the thing. Exactly. You read Killdozer by Theodore Sturgeon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever read Killdozer?
No.
Novella. Well, anyway, he was actually.
Sounds sick though.
It's awesome. It's about a bunch of guys who are set down they have to build a runway on a coral atoll. So the B-29s can come in there.
Oh.
And they've got a big They've got a big D8 crawler, um, big D8 bulldozer, so like a 6-ton bulldozer, and they accidentally knock over this ancient thing that trapped this spirit. Well, it's not really a spirit. It's actually a creature that was made by mechanical beings, and
awesome.
so it inhabits this 60-ton bulldozer, and it just decides it's like. So then it's like the thing if the monster were a bulldozer, right? So it's just chasing them all around, and they're like, where can we go that a 60-ton bulldozer can't get? Well, there really isn't anywhere. And
this sounds awesome.
Oh, it's so good. But the thing is, like he actually was in the Seabees and like built a runway on a coral atoll so the B-29s could come in and land, right? And so the opening of that book is just a guy running a bulldozer.
Right.
I've never run a bulldozer, but I mean, I've been in skid steers and I've driven tractors and stuff like that, and I'm like, this is just clearly this guy has done this.
Right.
And it's just thrilling, right? And then when you get into like the imaginary part of it, it's not like some person who just graduated from Cornell or whatever imagining what an insane bulldozer would be like. It's like a guy who really knows what you could do if you wanted to kill people with a bulldozer, and he's clearly spent time thinking about killing people with a bulldozer,
right? And
how other people who knew what they were doing and were construction types and smart and tough and hardy, how they might go about escaping you first and figuring out what the hell was happening, and second of all, then how would they take you down?
Right.
And so it's just a brilliant story. It's a great story.
Well, and to me, like that's the thing that I think fiction gets to do that nonfiction doesn't get to do, right? So like in a nonfiction book, you could read a nonfiction book about a group of men or a group of people, whatever, who needed to build a runway so that the B-29s could land. And it could be an interesting book, but there's no way that I'm going to be as interested in that as I am Killdozer. Because
you get all the thrills of that, and then there's this ancient evil that takes over.
Yeah, right.
Done bulldozer. It's just so cool.
It's awesome.
No, it's a great. Well, that's Tolkien's idea, right? That monsters are actually the thing that binds society together, right? Is because everybody can. You can go, well, I could take it or leave it. Then you go, okay, so it's this thing that really happened, plus a monster.
Yeah,
and
right.
Everybody goes, oh, then I can identify. Like I totally get it because I can imagine my life plus a monster.
Yeah.
Right? I can imagine the university plus a monster. And that's when, so you go Feiner. Whatever. It's kind of a weird building full of weird people. Then you go Feiner plus a monster.
Okay.
I could write a story, right? And everybody's going to be interested. So Tolkien's idea of the monstrous, as we know from our friend the monster professor.
Yeah, I should have had him on my thesis committee. It just occurred to me just now. That would have been great.
He could. That's what a great idea. I'm going to suggest that.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah.
Because he's so good, man. He's so smart. That would have been a really cool committee.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so can we play I'm going to go shortly, but can we play the game a little bit just since we're on a gaming streaming platform?
Yeah. Yep. Let's see. Share screen. The disc jockey. Share sound. Okay, can you hear and see it?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, it's super loud. Is it loud for you?
It's not for me.
Okay, then I won't turn it down then. Okay, so this is kind of a little tutorial where it tells you how to play the game.
Sure.
So resolve above zero.
Above zero, and your exasperation less than 2.
Yeah. It's not loud for you guys? Okay, cool. Be careful who you talk to because DJ Vomit is quick-tempered and his fuse burns out quickly. So, your resolve exasperation meter is down here, 100 of 200.
The more resolve you have, the less exasperation you have.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so it's time. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn. I have to turn it down. If it's not loud for you guys anyway, it's
fine.
Okay. So yeah, the resolve exasperation is kind of like a combined health bar. So like your health cannot be full or empty. And so as your health bar fills, you're getting more exasperated. So you're trying to keep equilibrium, which to me made the most sense when
No, I love that. I think it's really smart.
Yeah. Oh, I attached a light to him this time, so you could see where you're going. But yeah, so when you
This is made in Unity.
yeah, this is made in Unity,
It's for folks who are game developers who might be watching this.
right? Peter, Vomit, good to see you.
Peter the meat salesman.
Yeah. So this is where you get your first dialogue choice, right? So you can either do 10 for vomit him, or you can 20 for give him a break. Now, depending on what you choose, will increase the resolve exasperation meter by X amount, right? And there are other dialogue choices later in the game which actually reduce. So there'd be like a -5.
And so give him a break. It actually exasperates DJ Vomit.
Yeah.
Because if he vomits him, if he does his thing,
Yeah.
then he feels a kind of his resolve increases, but he feels a kind of he feels more peace when he yells at people than when he doesn't.
It's his natural mode. Yeah, it's like his natural mode is to just kind of be a dick. Like,
right.
He's a radio. He's like Opie and Anthony. I don't know if you ever listen to that show, but
yeah. I think they got something bad happened.
Oh yeah, but that's just their natural mode. That's how DJ Vomit is. Wish I could say the same, Pete. What do I have to do to make you forgive me? Now it's even cheaper, right? And even more expensive to give him a break after you've committed to your original choice.
Okay.
So I'll vomit him again. There's nothing you can do, asswipe. Okay then. Why are you still standing here? And then there's these hooch bottles.
Bathrobe?
He's kind of in a monk outfit. You can't really see. Maybe you can see it in here. It's orange. But yeah, there's hooch, and if you drink hooch, your resolve goes down. So if he drinks, he calms down a little bit. But if you drink too much, your dialogue choices change, and you can't be as nice to people. Like there's another one. They're kind of spaced throughout the world.
Okay.
But yeah, so I kept the game kind of in these lanes. So like it's a 3D side scroller basically. It's kind of weird. Yeah, you can talk to her. But I think I want to go to another conversation, which I think was kind of. I think I can talk about it a little bit more interestingly. So you choose right because straight's not done yet. So these are the cops talking up here.
Wow, pig, man, really are fun.
Yeah, right. Well, that's what everybody calls them in Salt Lake City.
No, I get it. I get it.
Outstanding parking ticket, and my favorite one is just to ignore because it doesn't cost anything. Hey, and then you just leave. And then you can go in here.
Measure time robot.
Yeah, and I didn't make this art. This all came from a studio called Cinti, and I got their pack, their like asset pack.
No, it's a great. I mean, one of the great things about developing stuff now is you don't have to be an expert in everything.
Yeah,
right? You can actually,
you can have other people help.
Yeah, you can buy packs and use
Right.
fucker dogs.
Jerks. You stinking rat. Shit. So he is mad.
Apparently so, DJ Vomit. I
Hey,
like
jerks.
your leg is up.
Yeah. I was good until your twitchy rat nose poke into the pink kitty. Jerks wrinkles his nose rapidly, sniffing the air around him in a tight circle.
See, that's writing, man.
Yeah, right?
You're a writer. You don't just say he sniffs the air, right?
Yeah.
Or like he acts like he smells something bad.
Right.
You do direct experience.
Yeah, the direct experience, the sniffing in a tight circle, like a rat, So what do you want? So I can vomit him now.
That's gonna blow your.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, if you vomit him, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, you can't vomit him because then he can't get drugs, right?
Right. Okay.
And so now he's very afraid to be in his natural mode, and he actually gets rewarded for being meek.
So these values then are calculated differently for every encounter.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they're values that aren't extrinsic, right? They're intrinsic to DJ Vaughn.
Yeah, and in my opinion, like how I kind of went about it is they're intrinsic to the scene. So like every character you talk to is a scene,
right?
And that's how I kind of wrote them. There's just like the scene it can be iterated in like 4 different ways, and so that's why I was like, and there's a missing dialogue option here because we didn't talk to Bina the droider, because she dates jerks. And if you're nice to Bina, then you get another option where because you were nice to her, you get that option. But I didn't talk to her. So we're going to be meek. Hey, jerk. Sorry to bother you, sir. I was just wondering. What? Spit it out, junkie. I'm out. Of course you are. What do you mean? Why else would you be here? It's always the same. No, want a beer, jerks? Or, hey, I heard you like getting your dick swallowed, jerks. Want me to pay for it? Do you a solid? Never anything like that. It's always, jerk twists his face in mocking sadness. Jerks.
Not that I've had this conversation, but I feel like I've witnessed it.
I have too.
This is the opposite of the relationship in Pineapple Express, right?
Right.
This is where the dealer thinks he's your friend.
Right. Yeah, this is
James Franco.
Totally opposite of that.
Yeah.
I need my fix, jerks. Me. I'm such an addict, jerks. I love jerks. I think jerks is hilarious.
Oh yeah. Well, all of these people, like your secondary characters, feel like they could be primary characters,
right?
Rather than just NPC, right?
Right. Yeah.
They've all got backstories. They've all got character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, and Gregory, just so you know, yes, this will be on YouTube. There's a kid over on Skull Street. I order a beer. You need to get her one. Will hooch do? I got plenty of hooch. No, it's got to be a beer. That was the deal. Well, guess I'm heading to Skull Street. And then it transports you back out. Which, when I finally got to work, I jumped out of my chair and fist bumped. And
It's amazing, right? When you learn to do things you've seen games and media do.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And knowing, like, oh my gosh, that was all made by me is just so sick. I love it. And then there's Billix the Rich. He's the one Mambo Corp employee in this world.
Yeah.
And then there's Yanuar the politic. I love Yanuar. You there, the drug-addled monk man. Do you wish to hear my plea? Will you not stand for the revolution? Why not? All right, sure, why not? What's so special? Nothing. Nothing is special anymore. That's the problem.
It is the problem. Damn, I like that guy. For him for president.
What's the deal? How do we fix it? You can't. Can you? No. Then why are we talking? This is the problem with you street people. You think because I say you or I can't change it, that means it can't be changed. It can, but it takes more. More people. Everyone. Now it's getting cheaper for you to leave because it's trying to test your patience, basically. Like who? Who do we need to convince to change this? How do we get everyone? We have to start at the grassroots. We have to get the information about Salt Lake City out about Salt Lake City. How it takes our lives and grinds them up and turns them into tithing money for the Mormon Corporation. Are you in? Yes. Really? I mean, good. How do I help? Yanuar frantically digs at the pouches on his waist, withdrawing several sheets of tea paper. It scintillates golden. Atop the page, it says bright, iridescent, in red letters, "Will you help save us? Take these. Pass them out to anyone who will take them. Everyone needs to know about this. Everyone, except cops. Don't give it to the cops." For Salt Lake City. So I talked to him because when you talk to him, you get these political flyers.
Right.
And this is a side quest in the game, so you can offer to give these to people, and basically everybody tells you to fuck off. But
as they would.
Yeah, buying something, mind your own business, pleb. You can offer a flyer. Want one of these flyers? Learn more about the political struggles of Salt Lake City? Fuck no. Why would I want that? Society's fine for me. Well, I'm just going to drop it down next to you anyway, since you're being an asshole. And then vomit him. Fuck you, just say, Rich Bitch? All right. Yeah, dialogue trees are an unbelievable nightmare to write.
Pardon me.
You right?
Yep. Nope, I do. No heart attack. Don't worry.
Okay, good. But yeah, they're an unbelievable. It's so taxing to write. So then you can keep walking this way. This is why it's called Skull Street. And then you can talk to Shakur. Offer a flyer. And I tried to keep these short because I wanted the player to have incomplete information.
No, well, that's what I like. Is you're just saying you're not offering the actual dialogue.
Yeah.
You're offering like which dialogue button do you press.
Right.
And the dialogue you get is the dialogue you get.
Right. And Vomitum is always pretty consistent. Like if you let it slide, or if you vomit him, he says something along those lines. Like, right. Like you're an asshole, fuck off, I hate you. You know, he says something along those lines, right? But what I think is interesting is like when you go through talking to her, I don't even know if I have the correct amount of dialogue exasperation, but we'll let it slide. But these things get to switch, which I think is really fun. So like in her conversation, vomiting becomes more expensive because he starts to like her.
Right.
Right. Yep. And so like that's a super powerful way that you can have a scene in a game without literally writing a scene.
No,
you know?
it's I'm not sure I fully understand the dynamic yet.
Yeah.
But I understand the power of the dynamic.
Right.
And I would think that playing the game for long enough, you would really start to get a sense of cost.
Right. Yeah.
Being certain things and being certain ways.
Right.
Right. Which is relationship,
mm-hmm.
which is what all fiction is about.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, so yeah.
Well, and the other thing too is like, so in most other games, dialogue is just kind of it's that free thing you do. And it's not really the game. It's just like free thing you do while you're playing the game, you know, and
yep.
You can go around and you can talk to everybody. You can select every single dialogue choice. And to me, that's exhausting. Like, I hate the idea of like,
no, I agree. I think it's one of the things that makes people who are not gamers believe that games are sophomore.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's because the dialogue systems have almost all, I mean, now there are beginning to be exceptions, and there are probably many I don't know about, but
right.
You know, with things like with Disco Elysium,
yeah,
you know, now all of a sudden it's not, you know, it's not just this jejune, like, you know, pick your own, you know, where nothing makes any difference.
Right. Yeah. None of it makes any difference, and it's like it's a big chore. You know, like you go to a new town in Skyrim and you're like, oh God, I got like 30 people I got to talk to.
Exactly. It's one of the reasons I don't play Skyrim as often as I otherwise would.
Right.
And one reason I don't really play the game, where I just tend to play the game long enough to get decent armor and a bow and arrow, you know, and then I just hunt.
Right. Yeah, and then you just go hunting.
Hunting in Skyrim is way more fun than like talking to these yutzes.
Right. Yeah, you know? and so yeah, totally.
You know, like killing a mammoth, dude.
That's awesome.
I'm happy with myself on a day I can kill a mammoth.
Right. Well, and what was really important to me was the game. I wanted the person to go, fuck, I want to talk to that person, but I don't have enough resolve exasperation. Like I'm too angry. I shouldn't go talk to this person. You know what I mean?
Right. Because that's a human calculation.
Right. Yeah.
Like, how often have you been like, I know this is going to cost me, but I'm going to blow my top here.
Right.
Right. Despite the fact that I know I'll regret it, you know, an hour from now.
Yeah.
Just blow my top.
Right.
Wait a second, you get to you. That's a good pickup line, DJ Vomit.
upside down. She looks him upside down, up and down, upside down. Her flat expression warms into a smile. Okay, well, I moved here from one of those outer shanties. North side, the west side? Shit, you're from former Idaho? It was nice. I miss it. But we ran out of food, and Salt Lake City's immigration policy, Christ, worse than all the UA cities. United Shitties, more like.
Yeah.
DJ Vomit is so cool. She laughs, and Vomit doesn't care if it's at him.
Oh.
Anyway, my man, Harold, he and I cooked up a plan to get in. We took our clan, pretended we were traveling circus, and we're here to entertain the Mambo Corp execs. Got to do what you got to do to survive. That's what we were thinking. But, well, I don't know. You've been kind enough already. What are you doing on Skull Street? Finish your story, Shokir.
Yeah.
Oh, what the fuck? Did it glitch out? No. So she tells this really nice story, and I don't know why it glitched out, and I'm really sad. But then at the end, his resolve gets reset back to 100.
Bugs. Game-breaking bugs. Unplayable.
Yeah, 0 out of 10. Game-breaking bugs.
Exactly. Did they not beta test this thing at all?
No. And then there's a bunch of things that you have to do. We're not going to do it because it takes a while, but you can go through.
Let's do this on the stream or something like that, because
Sure.
it's really good.
Yeah,
It's just a remarkable mechanic that I'm only now, having heard the theory of it and seen early versions of it,
right.
and played the game and seen you play the game. I'm only now sort of getting my mind around it, but it's really inventive. I think it's a profound invention.
Yeah, I just want more of it to be the case. Like I'm amazed that nobody has done something like this.
Yeah, you feel yourself choosing to make or break relationships.
Right.
Right, and that's a really big deal. Yeah, because why do we? And not just I want this relationship because that gives me the golden key that will get me into the college of Westwood or whatever.
Right.
But because you actually want to have friends.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Heard you were one of them woo-woo chemtrail huffing fortune tellers. That's why you're quoting Alanis Morissette. I sense your negativity. I remember those days. Don't worry, dear friend. I see your future. So you tell fortunes out here on the skull? Hell yeah, Matt. Like how much for one? They're free. Free? How? I'm funded by the state. Subsidized fortune telling, my friend. You farm people's futures. That's fuck you gotta say. I sense you are super judgmental. It is okay. You haven't seen as I have. Uh-huh. So do you want to know your future or not? Mathic runs his fingers up and down the huge cuts of glistening lobster meat. No. Mathic basically tells you you're gonna die. So there's gonna be like 4 endings to the game. One ending is written completely, and it's the ending where Vomit, like, he gives the kid her beer. Oh, we ran out of time. He's dead now. You only have 20 minutes. You have 20 minutes to play the game. If you don't get drugs in 20 minutes, you die.
Well, for some of us, it's like that.
Yep, he is withdrawing. So I'm going to stop screen sharing and then close that game. But yeah, so that's basically it. Like, you have to get to one of the 4 endings in 20 minutes, and they all have varying degrees of, like, happiness, or like if you hate DJ Vomit, then you can just do that one because DJ Vomit dies real hard because he takes love, the love drug, like the one that's in the book.
Love, L-U-V-V.
L-U-V-V.
Really good. It's very Philip K. Dick.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think I kind of might have gotten it from him, actually.
Well, I mean, that if you're writing science fiction and you don't take stuff away from Philip Dick, then you're missing the boat.
Yeah, you're kind of fucking up. Yeah, that's true.
All right, well, I've actually got a book. This is one of less than a handful of Thesis defenses, of which we've got to rename that shit.
Yeah. Thesis parties.
That I have felt sad that it was ending.
Yeah,
I
right.
wanted it to go on longer, but that I'm glad because I know I can just, make you talk to me about this stuff anytime I want.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I'm writing your paycheck. So
right.
So, but yeah, let's end the stream now. Let's end
Sure.
the defense now. I'll get your paperwork in order. But this is, you have radicalized the MFA degree at SIUC in a way that I think is really praiseworthy, and it took a lot of guts.
Cool. Thank you.
It's very satisfying to read the book and see all the things. And my belief is you'll keep working in this area, and it will eventually all come together.
Right. Yeah.
Like the world, you will find the ways that the Silmarillion works with the Hobbit and works with Lord of the Rings. And
Yeah.
the way they go out to Forgotten Tales and and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
but it's just going to take years of work. It's just going to take years of creating the artifacts that eventually link up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That is kind of the nature of it. Is just. It just seems like, I mean, I couldn't have done it without like you and Jay, and like, there's no way. Like I can't even imagine if I had not gone to SIU.
That's what an MFA program should be for, right?
Right.
You didn't come here and do something you could have done if you'd just gotten a crappy job that didn't take much mental energy and
Right.
gone home every night and written, right? And most MFA students would actually write more if they just got a shitty job and wrote in the evenings for 2 hours a night, right?
Right.
And they would end up with this, more pages with the same stuff they did, so the only reason I can see for an MFA is that it changes your direction,
Right.
right? In the way that a scene changes the direction of a character.
Right.
An MFA where you just come in and you take the stuff you did as an undergraduate and you kind of do more of it, and it's bigger and it's longer and it's slightly better written.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not a scene, that's a vignette.
Right.
Right. And you want that arc of change. You want that arc of powerfully altered direction,
Right.
intention, and understanding.
Right.
And most people I've seen go through MFAs, and I've been teaching in MFAs for many, many years now. I don't see it happen. And I very much saw that happen with you. I've seen it happen with a number of people. But I think now it's actually programmatic. Like I think
Right.
it's what we're actually going to do in the program.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's what absolutely. And what it is what I think is funny about it too, is like pretty early on, I realized that I was obsessed with the hero's journey, and I wanted my MFA to be like a hero's journey. And that's how you're teaching the MFA, right? You're taking all of these people and you're giving them their own hero's journey to go on, right? Where they go through change, they have their inciting incident, right?
You got to have the initial refusal of the call.
Right.
There's that, this asshole's crazy.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But then, then something breaks and you go, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, Pinckney's not going to change, so I've got to.
But see, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
You can write as many angry letters and evaluations at the end of the course as you like.
Right.
But next time you see me, still the same.
Right. It's still the same.
So it's like either you change or get out.
Right. Well, and I think that's actually really valuable. Like when you have to go on your own hero's journey, you learn a lot about how to write. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of the people who kind of come out of here with a fart noise, or come out of MFA programs with a fart noise, don't embrace the fact that they're also trying to go on their own hero's journey. Anyway, you got to go.
No, but this was great, Dylan. This was really good, and it's a continuing revision of the model of thesis defense as not just a super final workshop,
right?
And that puts the focus on the whole time you were here,
right?
And not just this thing that not you, but that most people kind of crapped out in their last 6 months in the program.
Right. Yeah.
So then that's what I want. I want that revision of the whole program, and I want the revision of the capstone of the program. Right.
Yep.
It has to be different because we're not, we'd have more successes than we do if we were doing it right. And so, we've just got to change it. All right. Well, thank you. This was
Thank
fun.
you,
Matt. Thank you for engineering the whole thing.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt.
Always a sterling individual.
Yep.
And thanks for any and everybody who watched on the stream.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. I can't believe that we actually did a Twitch thesis defense.
Very, very cool. The seal is broken. We
can do them.
We want.
Yep. All right. See you later, Pinckney. Thanks. This meeting was ended by the host. So can I turn my video capture back on? It's not looking like it. Maybe. All right, is anybody still here? I see there's 4 people here. I did it. My MFA is done. It was really interesting. Cool, Mischief, or Two Lengths, as I know you. I'm glad that you found it interesting. I was a little worried that it wasn't going to be super interesting to people who are not in writing programs. How do I feel? Oh my God. I feel super elated. I mean, I'm going to tell you a quick story. So I graduated from my undergraduate degree in creative writing, actually, in 2015. And I wasn't going to go to a master's program. I had no interest. I was done. And it's funny because like what's hilarious to me is when I was in elementary school, I was like, I'm not going to go to college. And then when I got out of high school, I'm like, oh, I'm going to college. And then I was like, but I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to do the bachelor's degree. I'm just going to do the associates. And then I got to the end of the associates. I'm like, well, obviously I'm going to get a bachelor's degrey. And I was like, but I'm really not going to do a master's degree. And then I got to the end of the bachelor's degree and I was like, well, I'm going to do a master's degree. Because I've always been kind of hardline against, I don't know, kind of the time or the way in which academia takes time away. I sort of embraced it in my last year of the bachelor's degree because I finally learned how to be good at school, because I sucked at school, but I always sucked at school. Even in my first year, I failed my first year of college completely, like 0.07 GPA failed. And so then I got into the MFA, or no, I didn't get into the MFA. So 2015, I'm graduated. I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I want to go to an MFA program, and I'm writing these awful literary short stories, just horrendous. Like I can't even imagine trying to show them to you now. And I'm submitting every year. And if anybody who doesn't know, graduate season, I mean, maybe this is just the MFA, but graduate application season for the MFA is between October and like March. And you get, and it's a lot of work. It's a ton of work to do, because you have to get a package together of all the stuff you want to send. You have to take the GRE. You have to send out, I mean, GRE, not so much anymore. It used to be the case. You take that package and then you ship it out. And a lot of the schools, you still have to mail it. Like you have to literally you have to print your short story, put it in an envelope like it's 1950. And then you put a stamp on it like it's 1940. And then you put a little letter in it that says, please take me to your school. And then you take it to the post office like it's 1807. And then you mail it, and then they mail you back a letter and they say no, right? Oh yeah, and you also mail like $100 check, because it's like $100 to apply for an MFA program. So, which I don't really know why, but whatever, it says $100. So I was applying for 10 to 18 programs a year for 4 years. For 4 years, basically. And first year, flat, straight across the board rejection. So I spent like $1,000 on literally application fees and flat rejection. Next year, same thing, flat rejection. Nothing at all. And then going into the third year, I was like, I can't believe this. Because I applied at the end of 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018. So yeah, 4 years. So 2017 rolls around, and I'm like, if I don't get in this year, I'm not going. I'm not doing it. I'm not spending this much money. I'm not going to keep working on this job, because I was working for the Air Force at the time. I'm not going to keep working this job. I'm not going to keep living in Utah. I'm getting the hell out of here. Because the only reason I was doing any of that stuff was because I wanted to go to an MFA program so bad. So I was spending all this money. 2018 rolls around. I didn't get in 2017. So I was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm not doing it. And then 2018 rolls around, and I was still writing, but it wasn't very good. And I didn't know what I was doing. And I was like, I was 26 26. I was 26, I think. And I was like, well, okay, I'm going to apply this year. But I'm only applying to schools that I have not applied to yet, right? So I sent out my package, and it was funny because all my friends got into MFAs. All my writing friends got into MFAs before me, every single one of them. And I don't know why, because I swear to God, I was the first one that told everybody to go to MFAs. But so I was talking to my buddy who went to Minnesota State for poetry, and he was like, I mean, apply to SIU. And I was like, what's SIU? I'd never even heard of SIU. He's like, oh, I just saw it on some list, like, underrated MFA programs or something. And I looked it up and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Salukis, Southern Illinois, Chicago's there. Little did I know it's not very close to Chicago. And at that point see you later, Matt. At that point I was making I was playing Papers, Please by oh my gosh, Lucas Pope. And there's a narrative thread in Papers, Please where you help a guard's girlfriend get across the border, right? And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. That's better than anything I've written. So I wrote it. I just wrote that as a short story and changed a lot of stuff, changed the characters, changed basically everything I could. And I sent it to Hunter College, which is an incredibly good school. I sent it to Boston University. I sent it to Wichita State. I sent it to Iowa. I sent it to Emerson College, and I sent it to SIU, and I sent it to like 10 more places. I think I applied to like seriously 22 programs that year, in 2018. And Emerson accepted me in Boston, but Emerson is a private school and they don't give you any funding. So I was going to have to take out like $65,000 in loans every year to go. And I was like, that was the only school I got into. And I was like, well, I'm dead. Like, and this is never going to happen. And then like the moment I gave up, Pinckney called me. Like it was unbelievable. I remember I was at work. I was literally at work, writing another technical document for the Air Force. And I was like, this is over. Like, I can't afford to go to Emerson. I'm not going to get into these schools. I am fucked. And right when I was like, I am fucked, my phone rang and it was from Illinois. And I answered it and it was Pinckney. And he's like, you got in. And I was like, holy shit. I finally got in after 4 years and $4,000 in application fees. I finally got into an MFA program. Right. And I think that is a perspective that is super duper rare in the MFA. I know a lot of the MFA people in the program, and a lot of MFAs in all MFA programs got in on their first or second try. And they are a lot of the times in the early to mid 20s. They are not staring down the barrel of 30. And they have no context for what it's like to receive that much rejection, like that many thousands of dollars of rejection, right? And so when I got to SIU, I went bananas. I went crazy. I was working constantly. And there was something I didn't really get to talk about in the thesis defense, which is why I wanted to talk about it here. But it was genuinely getting into the MFA was the most meaningful thing that had ever happened to my life. And then I got to the MFA and I realized that actually it was only meaningful because I realized how much harder I was going to have to work. Because I thought I was working hard to get into a program. Holy shit. If you actually want to come out of an MFA program with any semblance of success, you have got to write like 8 hours a day. And I did for a while, but I couldn't keep it up, which is why the book ended up not coming out as good as I wanted it to. But yeah, it was unbelievable. I mean, I probably wrote something like 250,000 words over the course of the MFA, something like that, something close. But once you do that, like that's the thing that's really cool about the MFA and why I think that everybody should try to go to SIU, especially while Pinckney's still there, because you're running out of time. Like he's going to retire eventually. But for the people who are interested in games or people who are interested in making fiction that is not like the traditional short story, and you don't mind living in Southern Illinois for a while, Pinckney's got something special going on there where if you have the same mentality that I had, where you're like completely defeated and then you finally get that success, finally, and now you're going to work your ass off, it will make you a good storyteller in like a third of the time it would take you outside of an MFA program. And I'm going to try and replicate this experience in the Discord with the jams. Like that's kind of my goal, is to do like an outside of the MFA program on Discord. But Pinckney's a hyper pro. I mean, he's been around for like 100, 200,000 years. So yeah, I would definitely say if you have an inkling of it and you're making game fiction or you're making audio fiction, just give it a shot. Just give it a shot. That's all I'm saying. It'll make you a better writer if you want to be one. It'll make you a better storyteller, not a better writer. Applied for grad school, but because it's STEM, everything was just an online application. Yeah, and a lot of the like SIU was all online. I just uploaded my sample, my creative writing sample. A lot of the schools now do have you just upload it. You just upload your shit and then you're good. But many of them still don't. Like University of California, Irvine, you have to mail it to them. Wichita, you have to mail it to him. Iowa, I'm pretty sure you still have to mail it to him. I think Syracuse, you have to mail it to him. It's weird. Anyway, I think I'm going to head out. I'll see the Discord peeps in the Discord. And then we'll be streaming on Wednesday, of course. Which is tomorrow? No, next day. We'll be streaming on Wednesday, the usual time. I think Pinckney's not going to be there, but Matt and I will be there. And I don't think we're going to be playing the Game Jam games, but we will be playing the other stuff. I think Cleveland wants to play a game, but we're going to be streaming the Game Jam games next Wednesday. So anyway, thank you guys so much for coming to the Thesis Defense. Seriously, it meant like so much to me. I can't even explain it. It was so awesome to be able to do it on Twitch. Because I was thinking like, how am I going to leave this MFA program doing the weird shit? Like I love to do the weird shit. I love to do the weird thing that nobody would want to do before they leave, right? Nobody would want to write a book about Mormons and cyberpunk and violence and death and gore and sex and blood and shit. Nobody would want to do that in the program. And then nobody would want to make games in an MFA program. And then nobody would want to live stream it on Twitch. So the fact that I got to do it and I have proof of it is so cool. So thank you guys so much for coming. But yeah, so links all over the Twitch. Go to the Discord. We'll talk there. It'll be great. And more game jams come in. And yeah, love everybody. And then find my book. I'll tell you when it comes out. You heard it here first. All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.